Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, like our FAOC, we're going to, on a new tab, create a new table. We're going to hit Data, Get from File. Now, PBAS doesn't push out stuff in a workbook. It uses a CSV file. So we're going to click on that. And I'm going to go out there, and I've already pulled my PBAS status of funds for my unit. I'm going to go ahead and import that. And at this point, it's going to, again, open up the Power Query settings. It's first going to ask me a couple of questions, like looking at my data. Now, again, this data, when you kind of see it, it's got a couple of rows at the top that are not as valuable for us. And it's got some stuff already in the data that doesn't make it look very clean. So just taking a look at this, it's got some stuff in there that we probably don't want. So I know immediately that I need to transform that data. So I click on Transform Data. It's going to open up Power Query. And I'm going to move and open it up on the other side on my other screen. So I'm going to move it over. And it immediately has our applied steps. Again, went out to our source data. This file did not have additional tabs, so there was nothing to select. It immediately just pulled in the data that was available to us. Now, some of the information that we want to do, we want to delete some of these rows, but some of the rows are good information. For example, this when the report was generated. So we want to save that information. So walk you through on what this looks like. So immediately we're going to remove the top rows. When I do this, it's going to ask me how many rows do I want to remove. I like this report generated because it gives me the date and time that it was generated. So I want to save that one. So I'm only going to delete the top 3 rows. So this puts the information I want in that first initial cell. And I'm going to show you a trick here where you're going to click this F of X button, which is to add a step. And it's going to ask me what I want to do. I'm going to click in the DAX field, and I'm going to type in record.field, open parenthesis. And again, this right here is the name of the previous step. And then I'm going to put in a bracket and 0, which means the first cell. And I'm going to put in parentheses column 1, open bracket. So what that's saying is to record the field from the previous step, remove top rows, the first cell in column 1. And if I hit enter, you should see just that information saved. This gives me the ability then to add another step to where instead of custom 1, I'm going to do a hashtag and go to remove top rows, which was the last step that I had that had all my data in it. I'm going to click enter. It immediately brings me back, but I have a step where I've got that information saved. So we're just going to kind of put that away for now. So now I need the next 5 rows removed. So I'm going to again click on remove rows, click top 5, and click OK. Now this is better, but I still have my headers in my data versus being in my headers. Power Query has the ability to click use first row as headers, which immediately promotes those in. And now we can kind of see that it not only promoted them, but it changed the type because now some of these rows have numbers only in them. So it's no longer a text type and it is a numerical type. So that kind of already kind of cleans up some of the information that we want. It's looking a little bit better, but we still have these equal signs and quotations that we don't want. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight these cells because they have those in them. Our numerical ones do not. And I'm going to click transform and replace value. I'm going to type in here equals open parenthesis, and I'm going to click in here, but I'm not going to put anything in there with place. I'm just going to click OK. And again, it removes the first portion of it, and then I can do that one more time for that second close parenthesis. Again, I'm going to click in there, but I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to click OK. There, now our data looks a lot better. It looks a lot more like what we want to see. But if you remember, we saved that value back in the custom one step. It was one of the first couple of steps we did. We want to add that back in as a custom column. So to do that, I'm going to scroll to the right, and I'm going to click Add Column, Add Custom Column. And it's going to ask me first, what do I want the new column to be named? I'm going to type in as of. And then I'm going to click in here and write custom 1, because that's the name of that step. So I'm telling it to do exactly that. Now, if I put this in quotation marks, it's going to give me a column that says custom 1 in all of them. If I don't have the quotation marks, then it's going to refer back to the applied step and give me whatever that is saved as. So I'm just going to click OK. And then we can see that it's got our report generated date in there. So that's a great option to be able to plug in. Now, one other thing that you may want to do is I like having my full PEC in there, both the project and sub-project. Sorry, this is the PEC, but I like having a full project all combined together. You can also do that by clicking Add Column. And again, it'll pop up, and I can type in the project and sub-project. Oops. So if you notice I messed up there, I didn't give it a name and I didn't click at all. So I can click back on this cog and it should bring it back open. So again, I don't want to name it that. I want to name it full project. And now I'm going to type in the next one. We're going to click OK. And it gave me an error. Why did it give me an error? Because I didn't put a appropriate delineator between the two. It doesn't like that either. Project. Let's try the ampersand. There, I like that. So in Power BI, if you want to combine the two columns, you need the ampersand or the and symbol. So we're going to click OK here. And there, it gives us the full project. So again, that's just a couple ways you can transform the data. Again, this looks a lot better. The one last thing I want to do is I want to change my column types. Now, in the fund status report, you have to be careful because it's got obligation percentage, which would go out a couple of decimal places. But I don't want to change that. But targets would be in currency. Balances unobligated would be in currency. Cumulative authority would be in currency. Again, I'm just going to kind of select a few that would be currencies, being very aware that some of these obligation percentages or days are not going to be currency. Commitment amount, you will owe, EP, gross commitments, average cost per day would be a currency, and remaining days. So there you go. I have all of my information where I want it to be. Some of the other things you could do is change. For example, I've got these two pieces of information on the far right. You could move them over so that's part of your data columns. However, I like knowing which information I created from the data set, so I'm going to go ahead and leave them to the far right. And with that said, I'm going to click Home, Close and Load, and that should build us from that raw data a table with all of our information in it. This just gives us the ability to refresh or save over that data In PBAS's case, you're going to pull it and save over that each day. But because I worked with the raw data and I cleaned it up in Power Query, it knows those applied steps and will continue to use those applied steps for every single time. Where you might find difficulty is if you have multiple O-bands, because you have to pull a report for each O-band that you have. For example, I have 2 O-bands, so I have to pull 2 separate reports for the fund status report, and I have to use Power BI to actually combine that data. But that's for another video. As for now, we have good data. It's looking good. And in the next video, we'll talk about more ways through Excel that you can add information to this, so that way you're able to have a more robust status of funds by adding in naming conventions and giving your customers the ability to read the status of funds without needing a financial manager next to them to interpret it. So with that said, tune into the next video and hopefully we can build you a status of funds that is functional and easier to read for your customers to be proficient at their abilities and make good decisions.